In America, there's no such thing as Democrats and Republicans anymore. That's antiquated. In America, you have liberals and conservatives. This is what the American political structure boils down to among whites. The only people who are still living in the past and thinks in terms of I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican is the American Negro. He's the one who runs around bragging about party affiliation, and he's the one who sticks to the Democrat or sticks to the Republican. But white people in America are divided into two groups, liberals and Republicans, or rather liberals and conservatives. And when you find white people vote in the political picture, they're not divided in terms of Democrats and Republicans. They're divided consistently as conservatives and as liberals. The Democrats who are conservatives vote with Republicans who are conservatives. Democrats who are liberals vote with Republicans who are liberals. You find this in Washington, D.C. Now, the white liberals aren't white people who are for independence, who are liberal, who are moral, who are ethical in their thinking. They are just a faction of white people who are jockeying for power, the same as the white conservatives are a faction of white people who are jockeying for power. Now, they are fighting each other for booty, for power, for prestige. And the one who is the football in the game is the Negro. 20 million black people in this country are a political football, a political pawn, an economic football, an economic pawn, a social football, a social pawn. And the liberal element of whites are those who have perfected the art of selling themselves to the Negro as a friend of the Negro, getting the sympathy of the Negro, getting the allegiance of the Negro, getting the mind of the Negro. And then the Negro sides with the white liberal, and the white liberal uses the Negro against the white conservative. So that anything that the Negro does is never for his own good, never for his own advancement, never for his own progress. He's only a pawn in the hands of the white liberal. The worst enemy the Negro has is this white man who runs around here drooling at the mouth, professing to love Negroes and calling himself a liberal. And it is following these white liberals that has perpetuated problems that Negroes in America has. If the Negro wasn't taken, trapped, tricked, deceived by the white liberal, then Negroes would get together and solve our own problem.
Buy Black Podcast, Episode 16. How the Black community can leverage liberals and conservatives to become a political and economic powerhouse. Welcome to Buy Black, the only podcast dedicated to helping you find, connect with, and support Black-owned businesses. We're on a mission to bring consumers and business owners together to ignite the global Black economy. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you're a Black business owner or a socially conscious consumer, you've joined the right community. Ready? Let's get to work. Hey guys, welcome back to Buy Black, your only podcast dedicated to helping you find and connect with Black-owned businesses. It's me, your host, Gerald Jones. And first up, I got to apologize for posting this episode a day late. This weekend, I was out sourcing products for my online business, as I talked about in the last episode. We are moving into crunch time, and here within the next couple of weeks, it is going to be kind of a run on Amazon, as you guys probably already know. So I spent a lot of time this weekend trying to get more products in my inventory. Last night, till about 2 o'clock in the morning, actually getting it all scanned into my inventory, boxed up, so I could ship it off to Amazon's warehouse this morning. So I apologize for that. Today, the show that we're going to talk about is going to dive into a little bit about politics. I know that I made the pledge that I'm not going to talk about politics on this show when I first started it. And y'all have no idea how absolutely difficult that has been, because it seems like everything that we do is somehow wrapped around our politics and what we believe. So I still don't plan on talking about any particular politicians on the show, but it would be completely, what is the word I'm looking for? Disingenuous. It'd be completely disingenuous for me to run this show and pretend like politics don't affect our economics, and that political leanings and political values don't have any effect on our actions. So with that, This show actually comes out of a couple of conversations I was having on the Facebooks here within the last day or so. And it's become pretty obvious to me that when it comes to politics, when it comes to political parties and things like that, we have got it all wrong as a Black community. There's a lot that we take ourselves out of as Black people by being loyal to one party or to another party, or by looking at political views as, well, all Black people should be this, or all Black people should be that. It really dumbs us down and puts us into a box that we don't all fit in. So what I wanted to do today was actually talk about the importance of Black people, political parties, our values, and the importance of independence. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to talk about all of those things in this, but they're all going to come up. So you heard in the opening this audio clip that was from Malcolm X. It was actually from a video that I found on YouTube that really describes perfectly what it is that I feel about politics and what I feel about political parties. So I guess I'll just start off with that, talking to you guys about me and my political values and my belief system. So I describe myself as a conservative. I know that that's not popular in the Black community, but that's what I am. Now, I would disagree heavily with what people say is conservative, or what people try to ascribe as being conservative, and what being conservative really means to me. So in my world, in my conservative worldview, that is wrapped not around, my religion. It's not around my moral beliefs about how anybody else should live their life. It is all wrapped around the idea that as little government interaction as I have to have in order for this country to just be safe and fair, that is what I want. I don't believe that the government ever comes to help. All it comes to do is to create problems where they did not exist, or exacerbate problems that already exist. And the less interaction that any group of people can have with government, the absolute better. Now, I know that in the mainstream idea of conservatism, this is all well and good so long as we're just talking about less government welfare programs and less government safety nets and fewer of the things that actually help people who need them. But they're absolutely fine with conservatives walking in and saying who can sleep with whom in their own bedroom and what a woman can do or can't do with her body and all of those other things. It's this hypocrisy of, I want the government out of my life so long as it's doing stuff I don't like. But I want the government to come in and tell other people not to do things that I don't like. I'm not talking about that kind of conservatism. That's not me. It is a blanket conservatism of the government needs to stick to its own job, which is basically to protect our nation from other people attacking it, to protect people from other entities, whether they be companies, whether they be other levels of government, or whether they be other people, to protect us in and of our rights, and to basically protect us from it. And that's what the Constitution is supposed to be for, to protect us from what government, or really people in government, because that's all government is people, but to protect us from the people in government doing things to us that they're not supposed to do. So I believe in all facets, that's the way it should be. Government shouldn't be in somebody's bedroom saying who they can sleep with. It shouldn't be in a woman's body telling her what she can do with or without it. It shouldn't be in anything that is literally a human decision of how they are going to live their life. So long as you are doing things for you that make you happy in your life, and you are not infringing upon anybody else's right to do that, then you should be able to do whatever the heck you want. That's how I view the role of government. So with that, with this conservative view that I have, it has come to my attention very starkly that there are two different factions of black conservatives in the United States. I came to find this out because as a black conservative, it is very hard to find other people with whom you can relate. It's very hard to find people who have a very similar mindset to you, who you can talk to, who you can explain your thought processes to, and their first reaction isn't to start calling you different names and to basically try to demean you in some way. And so I've been looking for groups, like Facebook groups, online groups of like-minded people who I can come around, who I can talk to. We can share ideas. We can brainstorm things, and we can try to come up with positive solutions for the problems that we see. What I found is that most of the people who call themselves black conservatives are not. They're just black white supremacist sympathizers. That's it. They are so much more nasty and critical about our black community than white people are, vehemently. And, I got to be honest, for a very long time, I was part of those ranks. I didn't even see it. I didn't see how my mindset was colored against my own skin, against my own family, against my own people. It was this sick mindset of I'm accepted in this world because I do all the right things, and I stand upright, and I wear my clothes this way, and I speak this way, and if y'all would just figure out how to act right, then everybody would be fine. I was that dude. You can ask any of my people who have loved me from way back in the day and who just bit their tongue and let me be an idiot for as many years as it took me to figure it out and grow up, And I don't have any shame about that, because I feel like having been on the other side of this, having had that mentality, having made the arguments that these people make, it makes it that much more clear to me what right looks like, because I've actually been on the wrong side of this. But anyway, so there's that faction of black conservatives. That's what other black people see in their mind when they see or when they hear about a black person being a conservative. They support Trump. They do this, they do that. They're always apologizing for this and saying we need to get over this and that and blah, 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 all this other crap, right? That's one faction of black conservative. The other faction of black conservative are those who have this Malcolm X mentality of, I need all of y'all to just get out of our way so that we can handle our own stuff internally. I don't want anything from you. I don't need anything from you. I'm not going to ask your permission for anything. Just get out of the way so that we can handle our own business, so that we can educate our kids and teach them to be proud of themselves and who they are, so that we can grow and build our own businesses, build our own wealth in our community, and be self-sufficient. I don't need anything from you. I don't want anything from you. We can be cool, but the best way for us to be cool, the best way for us to be able to connect is if I don't need anything from you, you don't need anything from me, and we are perfectly fine being ourselves in our communities. And then we come together to a table as equals. That's the other side of the black conservative. These are people who, a lot of them own their own businesses. A lot of them are spending their time and energy and money in the black community trying to teach entrepreneurship, trying to promote business ownership, trying to buy property and show other people how to buy property, how to basically take our ownership back, the same ownership that we had under Jim Crow, because we couldn't go anywhere else except among our own community. These are the people who are trying to bring that back. And the conservatism is, again, about, I don't trust the government to do anything positive for the black community, because never in its history has it done anything positive for the black community. So don't tell me the answer is more government. Don't tell me the answer is more programs to feed our kids. Don't tell me the government or the answer is more whatever from the government that can eventually solve it for black people. It's never going to happen. It only furthers dependence on a system that's not set up for us to win. The only way for us to win is to get as far away from that system as possible, to build our own businesses, to bank in our own banks, to hire our own people, to actually build up our community. Nobody else in this nation is going to do that for us. They have no reason to do that for us, and we shouldn't expect it of them. We just need to take control of our culture, take control of our children's education, and teach our kids to have the values and the respect for each other and for self and for our culture and for our communities, the skills to not go out and get a job in somebody else's business, but to create a job in their own business and then hire other Black people the same way that every other demographic in the United States does already. And so I found that there's just two different mindsets. And in trying to join these different Facebook groups, inevitably 9 out of 10 of them that you find is going to be full of the first kind of Black conservative. All they do is down talk the community. All they do is post pro-Trump this, pro-Trump that, blah, 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 and have some of the worst and nastiest and ugliest things to say about themselves ultimately than any white person would ever say aloud. And the other thing I found about these groups is that only about half the people in them are Black. The rest are white conservatives who join a group that's made for Black conservatives because it's a safe place for them to go in and say all the things about Black people that they love to say but can't say in public. So they go find a group of Black people who will support it, who will agree with them, and just talk all kinds of trash about us behind closed doors in these little closed groups where they're not going to be challenged. So you get a person like me that comes in there and I start challenging them, and they don't like it very much. But you know what? They can't win the argument because, you know, one, I got facts on my side, and two, I'm kind of smart. So whatever. So then in searching through all these different groups and running across the same thing, I end up running across 1 or 2 or 3 people in those groups who share the same mentality. And one of them opens up a different group and invites me to join. I join that group, and man, it's a breath of fresh air. It's a completely different vibe. It's still Black people, but it's all Black people. And it is still conservatives. It's business owners. It's, you know, people who actually go out and create. And these people are in here talking about positive action, collaborating on projects, connecting people with other people to make things happen in and for the Black community. And it's all positive. Honestly, it's a breath of fresh air. But I see through having these interactions versus the other interactions that, you know, there is a large contingent of Black conservatives in the United States. Most of them identify with the Democrat Party because the Republican Party is flat out openly racist. I mean, nothing in the world made that as obvious as this last election cycle. So I would not expect Black people to go flock into the Republican Party, even if their personal views lean more to a conservative bent, to a, I don't want the government in my life, I just want to go and create and be great on my own. I wouldn't expect Black people to go to the Republican Party. But at the same time, the Democrat Party is not right for us either. So I've been developing this viewpoint and kind of testing it out on people and interacting and having, you know, different discussions and debates about what it means to be Black in America and what is going to actually work in order for us to move from this position of second-class citizenship to a position of equality. And I believe that it's going to take the Black liberals and the Black conservatives coming to an understanding that we are not enemies of each other. We are not here to represent the interests of this political party or that political party, neither of which exists for us. But we are here to use our different viewpoints, our different talents, and our different skills in order to fight the fights that need to be fought by people on the different sides of the political aisle. We need a liberal contingent of Black people who are pushing for social justice, who are fighting to change the system that still oppresses the Black community today. We need those people to continue that fight because that's their focus. It's external. It's on fixing the system that is truly broken, and it was broken on purpose. And we need those people to never stop that fight until the system is truly fixed. But at the same time, we need people who are focused internally, who are looking in our communities and on our streets and seeing that there's an entire generation of kids that we can touch right now as they're in elementary school, as they're in middle school, as they're in high school. And we can bring back what we used to have before Jim Crow ended in our communities, which was self-respect, community respect, historical and cultural respect for ourselves. It was entrepreneurial skills because we had to own our own businesses. We had to make them work. It was actual wealth generation and very wealthy communities because we owned what was in those communities. And when those dollars circulated, they grew. And as those dollars grew, a lot of times our communities had much more wealth in them than the surrounding white communities. The only thing that held us back at that point was that when we got a little bit too much wealth, a little bit too much property, those surrounding communities would come in and they would murder people and burn them all down. But you know what? It's 2017 and things have changed. Not everything has changed, but things have changed. I can tell you this right now. If we were in the situation today with our communities, with our self-respect of our communities and the entrepreneurship in our communities and the ownership in our communities, if we had that today like we did then, we would be in a much different place and we would be on a much different trajectory as a community. Because today, nobody's going to come in and burn down those businesses, our homes, simply because of jealousy. We've got those legal protections now that we didn't have then. What we don't have now is the skills. They've atrophied. What we don't have now is the family bonds because our families were systematically broken over the last 50 years. So we're starting over on that front, but we need the people who are looking internally at the community and saying, we need to inject these skills back into our children now while their minds are still malleable. It does no good to try to teach entrepreneurship to a 25, 30, 35, 40-year-old. I mean, every 1 in 15, 20, or 30 might show interest, and 1 out of those in 100 or 150 or 200 might actually take it seriously and do something about it, and that is wonderful. That is great. But it's not a natural mindset for us. It's a hard thing to turn your mind over from, I need a job, to, I need to create a job. It's just not that simple to change a mindset from an employee to an ownership mindset. I know this because I desperately want to change mine and I'm working hard at it. And it's just not an easy thing to turn over. You got to try, you got to experiment, you got to fail. You got to be in a position where failure is not going to kill you, which is something that a lot of us just don't have. So where it's difficult to do that with adults, we can definitely start today and look at our 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds and say, if we start teaching them these skills now, if we start getting them to look at their world as a place of opportunity to create a business now, then by the time that they're adults, it will just be the way that they think. There won't be anything radical about it. There won't be anything difficult about getting a Black person to think about starting their own business. It's just going to be what is because it's what they always grew up in. And we need that contingent of conservatively minded people focused on building those solutions in our communities and spreading them across the United States and changing the future of the next generation. That's how we win. We've got to embrace everything that is great about the Black community, and we need to stop fighting about political parties and what's right about being liberal versus being a conservative. Guess what? Truth be told, about 50% of the white community is liberal and about 50% is conservative. Look in the Black community. Guess what? Truth be told, about 50% of the Black community is liberal and about 50% of it is conservative. Only difference between us and them, we feel beholden to a political party. And as you heard in that video, in the audio from that video from Malcolm X, that's foolish. It's allowing ourselves to be used on the one hand and ignored on the other hand, and to never actually work in our own best interests. It's time for us to start working together in our own best interests. Imagine what happens, okay? Just picture this. Close your eyes if you're not driving right now, and imagine what happens over the next 30 years if today, right now, we form a collaboration in which the liberal contingent of the Black community who so chooses to be active and activist bands together and pushes hard for reformation in the justice system and the education system. I'm not even going to go into all the other things that need to be fixed. We just start with those two. We reform the justice system and the education system at local, state, and federal levels such that the laws and the regulations are written and applied in a way that is equitable to all communities of people. And over the course of 5 years, 10 years, however long it takes, those laws are changed at all different levels. And we start seeing the law applied more equitably to all communities, including and especially ours. We see that happen over the next 10 years, right? So that means 10 years from now, we're really looking at a huge change in the way that law is applied in practice. That includes everything from officers actually going to jail when they murder unarmed Black people to things as small as, and when I say small, this isn't small, but to things on the other side of, you know what, property taxes are not a fair and equitable way to decide how money is distributed to public school systems. We're going to fund public school systems in a different way that does not disproportionately send dollars to white suburban communities while stripping dollars out of urban Black communities. This is all happening because the liberal activist contingent of the Black community is fighting for that change for our kids, for their future. And at the same time, over this same period, we have this conservative contingent of the Black community that is focused on rebuilding wealth and business ownership in the Black community, dedicated to creating and building and propagating entrepreneurial education programs for children. They could be after school programs, they could be summer programs. Preferably, they would be completely integrated into the school system, starting as early as kindergarten. If you can count money, you can learn how to build a business. And we build those programs, we get those programs approved and put into our schools across the country, and we start teaching our young Black children in the schools that business ownership is a great way for them to make a living. Obviously, not everybody's going to be a business owner. You got to have employees. But again, we make it so that our representation of entrepreneurism is equivalent to the representation from other demographics. And we take that from today, 2017, and we work towards a different 2047. And we do that as liberals and conservatives who are both focused on improving outcomes in the Black community. 30 years from now, our kids will be living in a completely different world. In a world where the Black community is respected among all the different communities in the United States because we have ownership, we have skin in the game, we have leverage when it comes to going to the political table. Something that we don't have now, something we have never had in the United States, and something which, frankly, we must have if we're ever going to be treated equally. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today, and he was talking about how we just have got to fix the morals of our young men and get them to stop being thugs and this, that, and blah, 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 blah. All this mess, because if we don't respect ourselves, and nobody else will respect us. But if we fix our morals and we get our kids to stand up right and get their pants pulled up and learn how to speak English, then everybody's going to respect us. And I was like, nah, bro, I'm sorry, but you don't understand how power works. That's not how respect works. That's not how you get respect, especially on a collective scale. The only thing that is respected collectively is power. That's it. It doesn't matter how you act. It doesn't matter how you carry yourself. It doesn't matter how you talk. What matters is, do you have leverage over me in any way? If I treat you bad, will something bad happen to me? No, nothing bad is going to happen to me if I treat you bad. Oh, okay. Well, you look very respectable over there, but I'm going to disrespect you because I get no consequences from disrespecting you. And there's no point in me putting any resources towards respecting you because there's nothing you can do to help me out and there's nothing you can do to hurt me. So I'm going to turn and put my resources into these groups that can either hurt me or help me. Nothing about changing how we look and act and portray ourselves and wear clothes and do this and is going to change that fact. The truth is, when you got skin in the game, when your community has wealth, now you have leverage. Now you got the money to actually get a person elected or reelected or kicked out of office. Now you have the ability to affect the wheels of power. And guess what you suddenly command? Respect. That's how our community is going to get respect. Be treated equally. Be treated justly. It's not going to come from us changing anything about ourselves to appease any other group in this nation, because people respect the people who can either help them or hurt them. As we stand right now, the only value we are is to help a Democratic Party defeat a conservative agenda or a Republican agenda. Let me say that. That's it. And guess what? So long as they've got us on their side, 95% strong, and they know that no matter what they do or don't do, we will always be in their corner. We will always be the ones out in the streets doing the dirty work for them. And when it comes time for the election, they know that for those of us who decide to vote, we're going to vote for them. And they know that after the election, if and when they win, they're not going to do anything that they promised us because you know what? I don't have to do that. You're not going anywhere. You can't hurt me because you will not vote against me. The worst you can do is stay home. So why should I keep a promise to you? Much easier for me to keep a promise to somebody else who can actually do something. That's why we're disrespected. It's not because of the way we wear our clothes. It's not because of the way that we talk. It's because we have no power. So we need this black conservative contingent working within the community to rebuild our leverage, our power. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow. It's not going to happen in the next 5 years. But that's another thing that we as a black community have failed to do that other communities do quite well. Other communities think 10, 20, 30, 50 years down the line with the actions that they take today. We think Friday to Friday, first of the month to first of the month. But we've got to come together and start strategizing on how we are going to start thinking and acting strategically in a way that is going to change the future for our children 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now. And we have to start taking that action today. So in my opinion, my humble opinion, that means that we recognize that there is value in the black liberal community and there is value in the black conservative community. But we have to stop looking at how we can go out and cape for somebody else here and there. We have to stop going out and doing this party's dirty work, whether it's Democrat or Republican. And we got to look to each other and say, what is your passion that we can use to leverage for our community's betterment? If you're a liberal, if you're a conservative, if you're a business owner, if you're a worker, if you're an activist, or if you're just a quiet, silent person who throws money behind causes. What can we do to further our black community? And then we have to start working towards making it happen together, without all the infighting, without all the backbiting, without the coon and whatever other words we want to call each other for thinking differently. All things that were introduced to us, by the way, in order to keep us separated and from doing exactly what I'm talking about right now. So at what point do we stop? I say we stop now. At what point do we start working together? I say we start now. There was a lot of talk about my politics. Scratch that off the list. 2 types of black conservatives. Scratch that off the list. The problem with parties. Malcolm X kind of laid out that problem with parties. This all really started because I was having a conversation earlier today. I was scrolling down my social media and I saw on a friend's page that, one of their friends had posted an article to their page. And it was an article from the New York Times. And it was basically an article where the author was basically saying, I don't believe that I can let my kids have white friends. And the gist of the article was, blah, 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 elect Donald Trump, blah, 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 all these people who say that they're not racist, but they ignored everything that this guy was saying so that they could vote for him. So blah, 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 blah. All right, whatever it is, this guy was saying, I can't trust a white person who has that mentality, who has the ability to turn that empathy off and say, well, I'm just going to vote for this person despite what I know about them. I can't trust them to always work in my best interests. And if I can't trust you that deeply, we cannot be friends. Notice in the article, he wasn't saying we can't be friendly. We can't be even close to each other. But there's always going to be a bit of a guard up. I'm not going to let you completely in because I can't trust your motives and I can't trust your judgment. That was what this article was saying. And, these were 2 conservative people whose page this was on, one black, one white. It was the white person who posted on the black person's page. He agreed. And I just came and I said, hey, I disagree with both of you on this. And here's why. Obviously, I got feedback back. I was like, yo, don't try to tell me how to live my life. I'm not trying to tell you how to live yours. Just listen and let me explain to you why this is what it is. What ended up happening, though, is that we actually had a really good conversation. And so the black conservative guy actually was like, man, I agree with everything that you just said. And the other person was just kind of there and they stopped arguing, which was great because you didn't have a bunch of this ugly nonsense that you have on social media. But in that response, I made a statement and I was like, man, that was really good. So then I took that statement and I posted it on my page and started having a conversation with folks on my page and then as well with some folks in this black conservative group that I was talking about. The good one, not one of the bad ones. So I just decided, man, this is a subject that I can't avoid anymore. I spend so much of my time talking about my reality and sharing my views on culture and politics and everything else with people every single day. And I'm working my nerves to not talk about it on this show. And it really is making it hard. It makes it hard for me to talk and just be honest because I'm like, well, what can I say and what can I say? I'm trying not to get people mired in politics. Guess what? I just can't, man. There is so much of who we are that revolves around politics. So that being the case, here we are back again. What I want to do real quick is just read the post that I made on my page, which will kind of explain how I view all of this and why my viewpoint is what it is and why this project is what it is. So here's what I posted today. Conservatives say the Democrat Party is a plantation. I agree. And the Republican Party is on the same plantation. One group likes their Negroes in the fields doing the hard labor to push forth their agenda, and the other prefers to have theirs standing on the porch scolding the field Negroes for being so stupid, improper, and uncouth. You don't get off a plantation by moving from the field to the house or vice versa. You get off it by buying your own farm, building your own home, and growing your own crops. Entrepreneurship is the only path to real freedom, and party independence is the only path for minority groups to leverage real political power. So that was what I said, and that's truly how I feel. I'm registered as an independent. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I don't believe that either one of those organizations exists for my benefit or the benefit of my family or the benefit of my community. They exist to further their own power. And as you heard in Malcolm X's audio from the 1960s, which is still so potent and real today, the Black community is used as a political football. We are punted back and forth. We are thrown out on that field. We are used in whatever way the Democrat Party chooses to use us in order to hurt the Republican Party. But neither one cares about us. Neither one is actually working in our best interest. And if we live our entire lives caping for one party or the other party, we're not working in our best interest either. So how do we win? We win by taking our little football and getting off of their field and reigniting the entrepreneurship that was a bedrock of our culture, that is still a bedrock of who we are as people. And we take that and we start building. And while we're building, on the other side of it, we have our warriors, our social justice warriors, out in the community, working, fighting, marching, in the halls of politics, lobbying, on the media, speaking, connecting, influencing, getting elected the way that we just saw in Charlotte and in Raleigh-Durham this last election cycle. We have a contingent who is fighting the fight to fix and change the system, and we have a contingent that is fighting to reinvigorate, re-educate, re-motivate our community from within, and we're all working together, not for our present, but for our kids' future. That's something I think we can all get behind and that we all should get behind. And you know what? Any honest dealer outside of our community, white, yellow, brown, red, whatever, anybody who honestly believes whatever their value system tells them they should believe, they will support that effort. Because who in this nation hasn't at some point said, we got to figure out this thing about Black people and killing each other and not owning anything and presenting a danger to themselves and to others. We got to figure this out. It's a problem. It's a problem everybody recognizes. Now, if people want to actually fix that problem and they see, oh, Black people have a plan to fix it themselves, all we need to do is get the heck out of their way and stop throwing up obstacles. Cool. I'll do that. Happy to do it, bro. It's the ones who will look and say, y'all want to fix your community for yourself? That's racist. Those are the people we don't need. I'm not going to try to convince you that I'm not racist because I want to see my community flourish. I'm not saying anything negative about yours. You do what you want to do. I just want my people to have a little bit of what everybody else has got. And I don't want to take it from you. We just want to build it ourselves. Just get out of the way. The people who have that negative attitude, the people who try to turn something that is about positive and love and respect for self into hatred for everybody else, we don't need those people. And guess what? If we're building our own stuff and we're creating our own money, we don't need those people. So it doesn't matter what they think. Again, respect doesn't come from telling somebody what they want to hear and tap dancing right on up to their door, knocking on it, begging for a little bit of help. It just doesn't come that way. I'm sorry. It comes from our own ownership and wealth and self-worth. And those people will eventually have to respect us. They will not like it, but you know what? Who cares? We don't need them today. They'll need us tomorrow. The people who are real, the people who actually understand that every person in every community has a right and a responsibility to protect their kids and their families and themselves, self-defense, to create their own wealth, to own their own businesses, to spend their money where they want to. Anybody who understands that the real American dream is not to come here and shed everything about who you were when you were anywhere else and to become as much like a white Christian male as possible in order to be a part of America. That's not the American dream. The American dream is to go from wherever you happen to be, come to this place where you are free to be who you are and live your life the way that you want to, wearing the clothes that you like, speaking the way that you like, wearing your hair the way that you like, and creating wealth and happiness for your family. That's the American dream. We don't need to give up anything about who we are in order to achieve that. We just need to take ownership of making it a reality. So, preached about all of that. Next thing I have on my little outline here, there was a lot of stuff today. There was a lot of stuff. The next thing I have on my little outline here is about respectability politics and why I oppose them. And I think I already touched on that. The idea that somebody's going to respect you because you speak in a way that makes them comfortable. You say all the things that they want to hear that assures them that their supremacy is not in jeopardy. You wear your hair in a way that makes them feel comfortable. You wear clothes that make them feel comfortable. If we just become as much like the dominant group, they'll respect us and then they'll give us our due. Nope, doesn't work that way. Power is never given up unless it has to be given up. And we have no power and they have all the power. Power respects power. We will command respect when we build our own power. Period. Dot. There is no other way to it. All right. So all those things out of the way, we have made it to the point where I talk about my solution to all of this. And guess what? I think I already said that too. I explained it. I'm sorry. I do this. Even when I'm teaching a class, I do the exact same thing. My thoughts just start flowing. I start talking and I get ahead of the slides. And then I'm sitting here clicking through like, oh, yep, already talked about that. Already talked about that. Already talked about that. You know, I can't help it. But here we are talking about the solution. Here's the way that I see this. First, most important thing in all of this is that we need to stop trying to change each other's minds. And that's not just in the Black community. That is across the entire United States. Guess what? Absolutely nothing that anybody says is going to change my mind. You know what's going to change my mind? Seeing for myself truth. Having a change of mind is something that comes from having a change of heart. And having a change of heart comes from being smacked in the face with reality when you have been purposefully blind and stupid over a long period of time. And nobody's words is going to make that happen. Recently had a friend when the Philando Castile dash cam video came out. Friend of mine who vehemently denied the existence of continued systemic racism in the United States. And this dash cam video came out, and this person told me she watched that video like 100 times, trying desperately to find what it was that made that officer shoot Philando Castile, because there must have been something. He must have done something. He must have said something, because it's so ingrained through media, through propaganda, and through history and everything that we are taught that Black people just sign our own death warrants. It's just what we do. If we would fix the way that we behave, these things wouldn't happen to us. And that's a really, really hard, quote unquote, truth to change in somebody's mind with your words. I can tell you the story 1,000 times. There's a million different ways that you can come up with a reason why I'm seeing things the wrong way. And this person saw that video, watched it 100 times, could not find a reason why that officer unloaded 7 rounds into Philando Castile's body. And it broke that wall that she had to seeing, you know what? There's something going on here that is contrary to everything that I've been taught and everything I believed. And I need to do a little bit more to learn about it, because obviously I don't understand everything that's going on. That change of heart happens from seeing, unfortunately. And so trying to change people's minds, whether it is Black conservatives with other Black conservatives who are just really white supremacist apologists, or Black conservatives with liberals, or white people with Black people, or brown people with other brown people, whoever it is, trying to change people's minds is a waste of time and energy. Both resources we don't have a lot of. So stop trying to change people's minds. You work with the willing. That's piece number 1. Piece number 2 is this podcast, is everything that I'm doing associated with a podcast. The Black-owned businesses that exist today, the ones that are going to be built tomorrow, the ones that are out there in the community right now that you know about, that you are supporting, that you are building. I want to do everything that I can to promote those Black-owned businesses. This platform is all about free marketing to a captive audience who is here because they want to support Black-owned businesses too. What more could you ask for except that the audience was bigger than it is? Well, over time it will be. Can't help it. This has only been going a few months. You guys are here. You're listening. You weren't listening back in June because this didn't exist. So obviously there's going to be more people as they go. As long as I give you guys good content, please tell me if I'm not. But we promote Black-owned businesses today, and we drive as many dollars to those businesses as we can to help them survive and grow in the market today. Our businesses that we have today are the foundation of what we're going to have when our children grow up and this whole thing just explodes. But we've got to get there. We've got to get that wealth building immediately. So that is part number 2. Promote Black businesses that exist today. And then part number 3 is what I talked about earlier. We develop and we implement entrepreneurship programs for children. If you guys remember back to episode 8, it was a conversation I had with Pastor Eugene Udell. And in that conversation, we talked about developing entrepreneurship mentor programs. And I was thinking about starting it at like middle school. And he was like, no, you start them when they're malleable. You start them young. It needs to be introduced when these children's brains are still forming and their values and viewpoints are still forming. And that was kind of eye-opening to me. I never considered that, but I agreed. So that is part 3 of my plan. Develop entrepreneurship programs, education programs that span from elementary to middle school to high school children, and that we can implement over time and across cities and across school districts in such a way that we educate a large contingent of our children to think like a boss, to think like an owner, to think like a creator. You get jobs along the way because a job and a steady paycheck can help finance your business. But the ultimate goal shouldn't be to work for somebody else. The ultimate goal should be to create your own business and hire other people to come work for you. If our kids are taught that from a very early age, it will just be the way that they think. It will just be the way that they act. It will just be the future that we have for our community. And the thought of that makes me really excited. So that is my idea for a solution. Obviously, it comes from the conservative side of this whole thing. I'm looking internally and seeing what can I do to help our community grow from the inside. I absolutely also invite anyone who is on the other side to that, folks like Mike De Los Santos, I know you're listening, bro, who are actively working on the activist side, on the political action side of this, to come converse with me, even come back on the show, or if you've never been on the show, come on the show and we can have discussions about how the activist and the liberal side of our community is working and pushing forward in order to make changes to the structure that we in the conservative camp of this whole thing can work to support, and vice versa. As well, I'd love to just know what all is working out there. It's all for the benefit of our community. So I think that's a huge thing of what we need to start doing is figuring out that we are in this together for each other, for our kids, and we have different ways of doing things because you need different types of people and different viewpoints if you're ever going to win. So there's a call to action to you folks out there. If you have a more liberal bent, if you are active politically, if you are active in activist movements, whatever it is, I'd love to know what you think is the best way to make the changes that we talked about to the system, to go about doing that at the local levels, state levels, and federal levels in a way that is organized and that we can actually make headroads faster for our community, not for a party on either side of the other. All right. So with that, another call to action here. Still looking for new Black-owned businesses to promote on the show. I do have a good list of business owners now who I still need to make contact with. Guys, life's been kind of hectic. There's no excuse, but I haven't done it yet. I've been catching up on other work that I have going on. So there's no shortage of businesses that I need to contact, but I can always use more. So if you have your Black-owned business, if you know a business that should get some free exposure to a market, connect with me and give me their information. Give me your information. Let's get on the phone. Let's talk. Let's start recording some episodes. Making a pledge right now to you guys. Right now, I am making a pledge to you guys that before next week, I will have contacted 10 new businesses to try to get them featured on the show. All right. That's my pledge to you from my side. I'm asking you to make a pledge to me that if you are listening and you have your own business and you haven't reached out to me yet, that you're going to reach out to me. If you're listening and you know somebody who has a Black-owned business and they need that boost, that you're going to send them to me. I already know one person who's in the audience who shall remain nameless, Mom, has reached out to me with at least 3 different businesses, and I've got them all right here on my notepad. So keep them coming. And for those of you out there who haven't contacted me yet, bring those to me because we got to get this thing rolling. Another thing I'm looking for, so as much as I love developing training, as much as I love building educational programs, it is a lot of work to do from scratch. So if anybody out there, if you already know of, if you already work with, or if you already have your own entrepreneurship training program that's directed towards kids, reach out to me, all right? Because I would love to be able to connect with you and figure out what it is that you guys are already doing that is working and how that can be tailored to my local community and to the way that kind of I build training and I design that. So, as always, it's so much better to start with a framework or to start with something that's already working rather than to try to come up with something from scratch. So please, if you know of any program like that, connect with me and get me that information, and we can talk and we can start talking about how we can kind of grow your efforts into different communities as well. So that's it. The last thing I have for you is updates on everything that's going on with the show. I told you, got a nice little list of businesses. I do need to reach out to them. I will. 10 by next week. Other updates, my website, which originally, as you all will recall, I was planning on building yet another Black-owned business directory. What I have found over the last several months is that there are already way too many Black-owned business directories. There's national ones, there's international ones, there's local ones for every single city. And guess what? Nobody uses them. And guess what? Also, half the businesses inside of them end up not being open. All right. So it's just a huge frustrating thing. And the last thing that I want to do is contribute to all of that. So as it stands right now, the website is almost live. We finally, me and the developer have finally connected and been able to make a lot more headroads on that. It should have been up a few months ago, but hey, bad on me, bad on him. Life gets in the way sometimes. But the website is almost ready for initial launch. It will have a directory in it to start, but I'm leaning more towards trying to figure out a way to build a tool that aggregates directories so that you can come to this one spot and it will be able to either tie into the other directories that are out there or point you to the right directory that is in that's in your town. That's going to have the most Black-owned businesses for you to be able to find. I don't really know what the solution looks like yet, but long and short is that I want to do something other than just yet another directory. I want to create a tool that is actually useful to the community, that is easy to use, and that gets you connected with the businesses that you want to support. So if anybody has any ideas on that, reach out to me. Let me know different ways that you think that it can work What is it that you need, that you're looking for, that I can provide? That is everything that I had on my nice list of outline. I know we had a little bit of a longer show today, and you know what? I'm not going to apologize for that. This was a show that was a long time coming, and if we're going to be partners in this whole thing, you know, you and me, we need to know where we're coming from. We need to be all cards on the table. This is who I am, unapologetic, and we can agree, we can disagree on a lot of different things, but we all need to be on the page that we are doing this together for the betterment of the Black community. And that is not to the detriment of any other community. For anybody out there who decides that they want to start calling this racist or anything like that, it ain't nothing about trying to hurt anybody else. I don't really care. You do your thing. But there is absolutely nobody else who is going to put real concerted effort into bettering the Black community than Black people. And we need Black people with all kinds of political leanings to work together to make that thing happen. And that's what we're going to do. So thank you for being patient with me, being a day late. Thank you for listening to this episode. And I highly encourage you, as always, if you have any questions, if you want to disagree with me, if you want to talk politics, business, whatever it is, connect with me via social media. The place where I am most often is Facebook. You can find my page at Buy Black Podcast. You can also find me personally, Gerald W. Jones II. You'll see me. I'm the guy with the bald head and the beard, wearing the Yoda t-shirt that says Free Words of Wisdom on it. Absolutely reach out and connect with me. Let's talk. I want to start having more real conversations with people and making things happen from those conversations. It's time to start building. So let's do it. Reach out to me, connect with me, email me, whatever works for you. Let's actually start connecting and talking to each other and making this thing a reality. I appreciate y'all again. God bless. Good night, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you for being part of the Buy Black podcast community. If you're enjoying the show, I'd appreciate reading your 5-star review in iTunes. Join us next time for another empowering episode.